Good afternoon. Uh, I'm running out of time. I'm going to try to get this out as fast as I can. Um, I I should have started just slightly before. So if this doesn't get out in time, I apologize. But uh, I noticed a while back that doing it an hour early is not always enough time to get it uploaded because it takes a really long time sometimes to get it uploaded to YouTube. So we are in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. And so we need to recap a little bit. Spiritual wisdom, where does it come from? It comes from God. Carnal wisdom comes from man. When it comes to building on the foundation of Christ or growing the church, as it were, you don't know what kind of Christian an individual is going to be. They may fall away, but you better not be the reason why they fall away. And so if you think that you're wise, you need to check yourself. You need to make sure that your wisdom is from God. But the point is, do not think more of yourself than you should. And that's important when we get into chapter 4, verse 1. So chapter 4, verse 1, it says, let a man so consider us as servants of Christ. And he talked about this a little bit earlier in chapter 3 and verse 5. Who then is Paul and who is Apollos? And now he's answering that in chapter 4, verse 1. We're just servants of Christ. That's all we are. We're workers. We're ministers, he says, and stewards of the mystery of God. We are trying to get the word out. We're trying to grow the church. We're trying to build on the foundation of Christ. But it's not Paul's job to determine what you are going to be as a Christian and what I am going to be as a Christian. Only God knows, because God is the one who provides the increase. And so, verse 2, moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. Another way you could translate that from the Greek is trustworthy. That word is the same word for trustworthy. So reliable is another idea that we could look at there. What is important for someone who is a steward of something? That you can rely on them. So imagine, loaning somebody $20. You say, I want you to hold on to this $20 for me. I'm going to need that in 2 weeks, but I want you to hold on to it for me. When you come back to them, you say, can I have my $20 back? You hope that they still have it. You hope that they didn't go out and spend it or get rid of it or give it away. No, you put that into their care. You put that into their trust. It's kind of like if you were to go to a bank, you have all your money in the bank, and the bank says, we don't have your money. Well, where is it? I thought it was in my checking account. No, it's all gone. Well, what happened? So you're trying to get to the bottom of what happened. I thought I could trust you to keep my money there and safe. And so that's why we have bank accounts, is because we trust that hopefully our money is safe. It's safe there, or a savings account or anything like that. And so Paul is saying that is a requirement. It must be that way. And it's very interesting that it's good that Paul understands the significance of this, because it's very interesting that this is the way that God chose to do it. Why would he make us humans stewards of his word? Why would he do that? We're flawed. We're imperfect people. And so even though in our imperfection, God, he puts responsibility on us. He gives us responsibility. And he hopes that we're going to be trustworthy and faithful with what he has given us to do. He says in verse 3, but with me it is a very small thing that I should be judged by you. And when were we talking about judgment? You remember earlier in chapter 2, we were talking about spiritual things and carnal things. See, a carnal person cannot make spiritual discernment and spiritual judgments. And so Paul's saying, if you want to judge me, he said that's fine. But if they're carnal, they're not going to be able to judge him who is spiritual. You can't judge spiritual things when you're a carnal person, a carnal individual. And so anybody who wants to cast judgment on Paul, a spiritual individual, need also themselves be spiritual, or they're not going to be able to make those determinations, because they're going to be judging not according to God, but according to man. And that's going to come back up in 2 Corinthians as well. It's a very important part of the relationship that Paul has with Corinth. But how are you going to judge Paul, Corinth? Are you going to do it spiritually, or are you going to do it carnally? And so that I be judged by you or by a human court, because it's human, it's carnal. In fact, I do not even judge myself. That's not his job. His job is not to do that. Verse 4, for I know of nothing against myself. I can't think of anything, he's saying. Yet I am not justified by this. In other words, even if I do nothing wrong, that's not ultimately where we receive our justification. So what is he talking about? Well, he's talking about the fact that we're not justified by works. That's what he's talking about. He says, even if I was a perfect person and never made any mistake in my entire life, that still wouldn't be how I would be justified. We're not justified by works. We're justified by the grace of God. So he says, but he who judges me is the Lord, who knows the mind of God, but the Spirit. God knows, it's his will, and he's able to make spiritual determinations. He knows all things. And so man is not going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to make those spiritual decisions and those spiritual judgments. Verse 5, therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of the hearts. Okay, so when's the last time we talked about this? When it would be revealed, determined, what kind of Christian an individual would be. Well, doesn't he talk about that in chapter 3? When you see the kind of Christian built on the foundation, what kind of Christian it's going to be, whether it's going to be gold, silver, precious stones, hay, straw. What kind of individuals is it going to be? Don't try to make a determination before the time's up. So often we say that this individual, he's a bad egg. Well, maybe he won't be. Maybe he'll grow. Maybe he'll become something else. Maybe he'll mature. I know so many people who have grown so much in the last 2, 3, 5 years. What about me? I look at myself. I've grown so much in the last, let's say 5 years. I've grown a lot. What if people made determinations about me 5 years ago? You'll never be a preacher. You don't have the skill. You don't have the talent. You shouldn't do it. Well, shouldn't I be given an opportunity to go and study and practice and work on it? And what about even now? Even now I want to go and practice and get better and improve and be the best preacher and minister and Christian that I know how to be. And the same is for you. That's something that you are working towards as well. Or have you met your full potential as a Christian? I hope not. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, it doesn't matter. Have you met your full potential? Can you continue to grow? If your answer is no, your answer is wrong. You can and you must. And so don't make that determination, even a determination of others, even a determination of yourself. Don't make that determination of yourself until the time comes. But when that time comes, then the hidden things of darkness are going to be brought to light, and the counsels of the hearts is going to be revealed. So if you have question as to someone's wisdom, where's their wisdom come from? Does it come from God or does it come from man? Well, maybe you have some question. Well, when that day comes, all things are going to be made clear. And it makes me think of when Jesus talks about when the Son of Man comes and he's going to divide the sheep from the goats. He's going to separate the wheat from the chaff. I mean, that's going to be a time where now you may not know, then all things will be revealed. And so one of the scary things about this is, you don't know what kind of Christian someone else is, but you need to make sure that you aren't the goat. When the division comes of the sheep and the goats, you need to make sure you're not the goat. Well, are you doing all of those things that Jesus talks about in relation to the sheep and the goat? Are you taking care of people and loving people and caring for people? I mean, if how we treat our brethren is the primary determining factor in that dividing that he does, the question is, how do you treat people? You might say, well, I was baptized. It doesn't talk about baptism in that passage. I'm not saying that you don't need to be baptized. You do, but your conduct and behavior is going to be a determining factor in that dividing process. You and I don't get to live however we want to live and just assume we're going to go to heaven. No, it's not earning our way to heaven. He just said that. He said that's not how it works. Even if I were a perfect person, I never made mistakes. That's not how we're justified. But we also need to understand that it is obligatory. We don't have an option. We must respond to the goodness of God in obedience and compliance. We must respond to the grace of God in behaviorally with love towards others. Are you doing that? Am I? I can't determine that on you. But I know that on Judgment Day, if you aren't, that's going to be revealed. And if I'm not, that's going to be revealed as well. And what we need to be working towards is being the wheat and being the sheep. I stutter a little bit because my computer moved up just a little bit, and I was like, I'm not there. Okay, I found my spot. So God is the one who judges. Judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of the hearts. Then each one's praise will come from God. What does that mean? That means the approval. God's going to approve of you. Not because you earned it, but because you're righteous. God made you righteous. And that's very important, because you were built on the foundation of Christ, and He approves of your righteousness, of which He gave you, and that is such a blessing, and it's so important. But it's very interesting what he's talking about here. The judgments that he's talking about. Is he saying don't judge? Well, that's not what he's saying, because as a matter of fact, he's going to get into judgments that he's going to place on the congregation, and he is expecting judgment to be made. And we're going to get to that when we get to that. Because there were things in the congregation that were not right. And someone needed to step up and with some spiritual wisdom and call it out and say, this is not right. Instead of boasting in it and approving of it. No, don't look for man's approval. You're looking for God's approval. So what is he talking about here? Well, it seems like he's talking about, in chapter 3, he said, you don't know what kind of Christian people are going to be. It may turn out that they were hay or straw, and something that perishes. right? But you don't be the one that causes someone to fall away, right? But you don't decide that they've fallen away before they've fallen away, right? That's not your job. You don't determine that. You don't make that determination. God's going to make that determination. And so you kind of just take that burden off your shoulders. That's not your job. He's not saying we're not going to make judgments in this life. He's going to get into that. But as far as condemnation is concerned, you leave that in God's hands. Paul's saying, I'm not. That's not. He's saying, what am I? I'm a servant of Christ. That's what I am. I'm a steward. That's what I am. And if I'm a steward, then I'm trustworthy. And if I'm trustworthy, I'm not going to keep this information from you. I can't